Today on Next Generation Leaders, we're going to talk to Anna Gavin. Anna is the president of Fireline Corporation. Fireline is a fire protection company that's been around for 70 years. Anna is the third generation to run this organization. And today we're going to talk to Anna about how she got into the business, her plans for leading the business, and what she needs to do to make sure that Fireline stays on top of the marketplace. Anna, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Fireline, kind of who you serve, what you do.
So we are a full-service fire protection company. So pretty much any kind of commercial property that needs fire protection by code has to have a fire alarm system, a sprinkler system, extinguishers, sometimes chemical suppression systems. Anything that puts out a fire or lets you know about a fire, we're the ones that are kind of handling it.
You've been around for a long time, 1947, I think.
Yep.
It's like going on 70 years.
Yeah.
So you've been in charge that long.
I have obviously been in charge since the beginning, yeah.
Okay.
No, my grandfather started the company in 47, specifically with extinguishers. We were the first company in the state of Maryland to introduce the ABC dry chemical extinguisher, which is the only extinguisher you pretty much see in most properties nowadays. So extinguishers mostly for a long time, and then my father took over in about 1982.
Okay.
And he ran the company pretty much up until his death in 2009, and I took over in 2009 when he passed. So
you kind of dropped a geeky fire protection line there.
I did. It was a very geeky fire
protection line. But your background, you're not an engineer as a background. How did you come about this? Yeah, obviously there's a family connection, but
right.
So what was the path that brought you to the leadership role you have now?
My background was not at all in fire protection. It was not at all in business even, although I have to say I did take 2 business classes in college, and I probably remember more about those than I do anything else I studied in college. Okay. Mostly because I got to put it into practical application.
Yeah, right
So yeah, I started working pretty much through college. Took a couple of years to go work for Marriott, actually, as a manager out there, and came back and with the family business. And when he passed, it was weird because I hadn't intended to take over the company. I really had no intention. I just had a baby. The idea was, no, Dad, I don't want to run the business. You got to fire so you got to redo this. You got to reline that.
Yeah.
It was too much work. And then when he died, we kind of went. This was the most important thing in his life. The idea of letting go of it just felt wrong. And so I said, I'll come in, I'll step in, and I've been working with him closely enough. I know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. It was way harder than I anticipated. And but it was also more addicting than I realized. And then before I knew it, I kind of fell in love with it.
So, when you decided to have a conversation with me and we talk about, how do you define leadership? Do you sort of have a definition of it? Do you kind of think in terms of, well, there's things I do all the time, but the overall kind of definition is what? What do you think?
So the first thing that I think of, I guess, when I think of a leader is the person willing to make the tough decisions, even when they're not being asked to, because they know that's what's necessary for the business. So I think that's kind of what I think of most when it comes to a leader. I think there's a bunch of things. There's so many factors, I guess. Honesty, right? You got to have that trust level. People have to trust you, and you have to trust them. There's got to be willingness to kind of lead by example. I once had a boss who, when I worked at Marriott, my boss was the GM of the hotel, and he would assist a guest, and then he would go, talk to me about crunching the numbers on the budget, and then he would go talk to sales, and then if we were busy, he would roll up his sleeves and start stripping beds with the housekeepers.
Wow.
I mean, he didn't care what it was, he did it. And so that concept of being willing to do any part of the business that you'd ask someone else to do, that was really big. And then, I think it's the guts thing, having a little bit of guts, willing to take the risks. Pretty much all you do all day is just make decisions all day long.
So as you sort of think about the team that you surround yourself with, the keys, you're a large organization, you're multi-state, you have a service, you have a product that you resell, you have a design engineering, you have all sorts of things going on in your company. And I would guess probably a diversity of age and skill set and demographics, probably quite diverse, right? So how do you decide to put together a leadership team? What are you looking for the people that you bring in to work with you? What kind of attributes you find you have to have at Fireline?
Okay, so I would say, yes, I kind of inherited a leadership team fully. And the mentality for a long time, I think, was if somebody worked really hard and they were really smart and they were really good at their job, they were promoted up. And the reality is that not everybody has that leadership skill set. It doesn't mean that they're not a phenomenal worker. It just means that they don't want to have to make those tough decisions. They don't want to have to be confrontational when sometimes you have to be. So I recognize, okay, this is my team now. They are good. They're not what I think we're going to need in order to get us to that next level. And if we're going to get off this plateau, then we need to start focusing on the next team. So that's when I kind of started looking into, what's my next generation leadership team look like? Who are my future all-stars?
Okay.
You know, and these were not necessarily people with the most tenure. They were not necessarily the most technical in terms of fire protection. But they had the right quality. Ultimately, it's how do they deal with people.
Okay.
I mean, really, that's
customers
what it all comes down to.
Partners,
whether it's customers or their
subs,
employees,
whatever.
it's how do you deal with people. That's
Okay.
ultimately what it comes down to. So I really started looking into them and investing in them. And we started talking career development. We started doing management mentoring programs, started taking them to lectures, letting them talk to other people outside of our business about leadership. But then I realized all I was doing was really investing in each of these little individuals. And what I needed to do was invest in these individuals as a team. So how do I build an entire team of next generation leaders, not just one or two, and then, because all I'm going to do is then have one or two really good leaders, and then I'll still have others that need to kind of come up to snuff. So it was really, how do I build them as a team? And that's when I really last year decided, okay, we're going to do this next generation leadership class. It's just an online course, but they can take it separately, but let's all come together and talk about it as a team to kind of build that social bond between them as well.
So what do you do? What can you do? What can your leadership team do to sort of innovate, to sort of, whether it's a market approach or a product line, or how do you sort of stay fresh in the marketplace? And what role do your leaders play in that?
So we start with strategic planning. So we do strategic planning each year, and each part of our strategic planning process has to have a percentage allocated to innovation, if you will, to something outside of just how do we get better at doing this? You know, it's actually, let's embrace something new or go approach something new, whether it's a new market or a new product. So it starts with the planning process, but then it really goes down into kind of a two-pronged approach, I'd say. So there's internal innovation and then there's external innovation, right?
Okay.
So internally, how do we embrace new technologies to make our service that much faster, that much better at what we do? Last year we invested a lot of money in a new ERP system, but it's going to have, and you know, the stereotypical, you hear it nowadays, it's going to have an app that's going to do everything, right? So my technicians are no longer filling out paper reports, they're doing inspections on their phone, it's sending it in, it's getting information to the customer faster. That's a form of innovation, that internal innovation, investing in the internal processes that can make us a little bit more efficient on the output. But then the external part is really working with our vendors. So we have a lot of vendor-distributor relationships, and I recognize that the more you invest with certain vendors, the more benefit they give you. Sure. So, and part of that investment is embracing new technologies that they put out or new product lines that they put out. So for us, for example, fire alarm systems, they tell you about a fire, right? Nowadays, this concept of the Virginia Tech shootings, it's how do you alert people about an emergency, not just a fire. Right. So this whole concept of emergency communication systems. We were one of the first in the country to install one out at Towson University. Okay. So it's that, okay, we're taking the product, we're advancing it into this new world. Who's going to be the first one to bite the bullet and start trying to install it? And guess what? That job was not the best job for us financially. We were kind of beta testers on that job, but we took the leap, and now we're recognized as somebody who knows how to do it, and so people will therefore come to you, and that'll help grow your business.
That's a cool example of sort of you're taking your competency and breaking into a whole new market.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately, the way I think about it from a growth standpoint is we're not really just selling product, right? I mean, our vendors sell us product. Yeah. We're technically selling a product, but we're selling the skills and knowledge of the people that handle that product. So whether it's designing it, installing it, servicing it, repairing it, I sell the knowledge of my staff. That is what we sell ultimately. So if we're going to grow, I have to invest in the staff, and then I have to invest in leaders who know how to properly hire and get people to fit the right culture. And whether it's a salesman or a receptionist or a technician, you know, it's how do you get the best people in there? And then if we have good people, my sales team is that much more confident about what they're selling, and they can feel like they can sell more. So
you hit the last point. Last point was culture, right? How do you as a leader, how do you set the tone on culture? How would you describe the culture at Fireline? And then sort of maybe what attributes do you make sure your leaders have, whether they're high initiative, high accountability, team player, whatever it may be. What are the attributes of sort of the Fireline culture, and what do you expect your leaders to sort of continue to promote?
So originally, what I would say is when I first came in, everybody, if you asked them about the Fireline culture, they'd say, "Oh, we're full of incredibly loyal employees." I've got a manager who's been with us since 1966. I mean, we've got just totally dedicated employees. It's definitely that family culture, but at the same time, I felt like that was just kind of down here, and we needed to be up here. So and so it was like, that's nice, but what are we really doing? And so the challenge that I've had over the past several years has been, how do I balance this kind of juggling act of staying true to the family culture, but also having a culture that's fresh and new and innovative, but also not too corporate-y, but a little bit more process driven, because we were kind of a little bit of the fly by the seat of our pants. Sure. And we just do whatever. There's no formula for anything. We just know how to do it. We don't know how to explain it. But how do we kind of regulate that a little more without getting too corporate-y and without getting too far away from the family business part? So what we've done to do that is really increase the level of communication with the staff. And so this kind of open book, here's what my plans are for the business. If anyone ever wants to talk to me about what our plans are for the business, I'm completely open about it. And so everybody kind of knows where we're going, knows that we've kind of got this newer, fresh look on a family business. But we still take care of you if you take care of us kind of mentality. And that's ultimately what it comes down to.
So it's sort of like old school, but still having sort of innovation and culture and adaptation to the market, and place where young people can find a home. And
I mean, I'm updating our Twitter account, and
right.
These are things that you just, I don't know.
Your manager from 1966 is probably not on.
Yeah, probably not on there, but yeah. So, but I'm trying to appeal to, okay, how do I keep it energized to bring in that kind of new all-stars, those new talent. While still staying true to the people and respecting the people who've kind of gotten us to where we are. It's even funny, my management team will use terms like, what are the metrics that we're using to study this, and where are the deliverables? Like, I don't even think they knew what those words were when I came in. So, they're thinking a little bit more business savvy, but at the same time, we constantly are talking about, how do we talk to our employees, how do we keep them engaged? We implemented this concept of performance development outlines, where each employee has this kind of like level of career development that they can go through, and just really trying to be a little bit more open and honest with the employees through communication.
Well, it sounds like you've done a great job of sort of being true to the sort of the family values, something that your grandfather would be very proud of.
I would hope so.
But and I would say that what he would be most interested in is, Anna, keep this going, right? And it sounds like you've done a great job at that. So I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And it was great to spend some time with you and dig into Fireline. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Anna Gavin knows the challenge of leadership. She knows she has to continue to grow her own leadership skills, but she's also made sure that she's grooming an entire leadership staff to make sure the company survives for another 70 years. And she's done this all in the context of making sure that those family-friendly values that were so important to the generations before her has stayed in place. We think Anna's on the right track.